Hey, what's going on today, guys? Today we're going to actually be working on the 2017 Honda Civic back there. You might have seen it in a few other videos. I don't typically tend to work on that one a lot because I want to keep the maintenance records and keep it up to date so that when I go to sell it eventually I have all that information. But I do work on it from time to time, and I just want it to be that car that's super reliable so I can deal with this beast. But today we need to change some spark plugs. Now it's going to be pretty easy, but I'll give you a quick backstory. On these Hondas, you get maintenance reminder codes and whatever. And I had gone in a couple of days ago for A14. A is going to be your oil filter oil change. 1 is tire rotation, and 4 is to have them check spark plugs and some other stuff in there. All right, when in doubt, check the owner's manual. I got the Civic owner's manual, and we've been talking about maintenance reminder codes and what they mean. And you might be wondering how I know this. Well, you can look it up online, of course, but in the maintenance manual, in the owner's manual, mine is page 130 and 131. It does list all of the maintenance reminder codes, what they mean, and then some subtext down here. This is for the US models on this page, and this side is Canadian models. So, when in doubt, read a book. Now, that one is actually really expensive, and when I called back and asked them how much that would be, it was about $500. So there was quite a bit of a gap there between that and these spark plugs. I bought these for 30 bucks. Now I did need a few extra specialty tools, so we'll jump into that. You will need 14 millimeter deep socket. This one just happens to fit down in the hole, and we'll see that in a bit, but I had a couple other spark plug specific sockets that didn't fit down in there. You will also need an extension. I'm using a 3/8 inch drive ratchet, so I got this extension. This one is 10 inches. Might be able to do it with like 6 or something, but this is what I got. So anyway, those parts together, I think they were about 20 bucks. So we're in 50 bucks for something that could cost 500. You'll also need a magnet on a stick or some rubber hose or something that's going to be the same size as the spark plug, because our little socket guy, most spark plug sockets have a little rubber piece on the inside that will actually grab onto the shaft of the spark plug and help you pull it out. But because these are so far down into a little well, and this does not have that piece on it, you need something else to pull it out. So I have this magnet on a stick. You just kind of reach it down in there and pull it out, but you can also use rubber hose or any other method you want to get it out. Now, the rubber hose method would just have you sticking the rubber hose down into there, and it would just grab onto the top. You'll pull it out. But anyways, yes. So here's the spark plug. It's a long, skinny thing. It's a little bit different than like a lawnmower or some other kind of spark plug. But yeah. Now, there is extra stuff they do for the 500. There's some valve clearance checking and all that, and we'll get to that in a different video probably. But today we're just going to be doing the spark plugs. So, let's get into it. And one last note, guys, you are going to need a 10 millimeter socket. I just have this little guy, it goes into a screwdriver. But these are going to hold in the coil packs. Coil packs go down and make contact with the spark plugs and send them the spark. So, let's get over to the car so you can actually see what I'm talking about. Alright, so we're over at the engine now, and it's kind of like a cluttered mess if you don't really know what you're looking at. But on some cars you will have a cover that goes over here. You're going to have to remove that. Mine does not have that, so I can see right into the top of the engine. These guys right here that I numbered are your coil packs, and underneath them are going to be the spark plugs. Now, I numbered them because I was messing around with it the other day, and I wanted to make sure that I put it back just how I took it off. It shouldn't matter because they're all the same, but I labeled them anyway. First thing you want to do is make sure your car is cool, because it'll get real hot in here if you try to do this just after you've run the engine. So don't do that, don't burn yourself. Once it's cool, you want to take off these little clips. So there's a tab on the back that you press, and then you pull it off, kind of wiggle it back and forth, and we'll do that for the other ones as well. Okay. Alright, so those are all off. These run back to you various systems in the engine, and your electronic your engine control module is gonna tell them when to send the signal to when to fire each one. So now that those are off, we can pull the coil packs out. This is where you need your 10mm socket. So we just put our little guy in here, and it's just the 1 bolt. So we'll take that off, and you want to be sure not to drop these in the engine because that would be bad. Just pull them off to the side, somewhere safe. Alright, so now that all of the 10mm bolts are out, we can actually just grab it and twist it a little bit and pull it out. And there's your coil pack. So, you can see that there's this long shaft on here, and that is actually going to get real far down into there. We'll get a picture of that here soon. But that is why you need the extension. So, we're going to have to get down into this hole with the socket. And so that is why we got such a long extension. Now you can deal with it shorter, of course, but I got the 10-inch one just to be sure. So we're going to go ahead and pull out those other coil packs, and we'll set them aside just like we did with the screws, and we'll be on our way. Alright guys, I'm going to see if I can show you down in there. There's our spark plugs way down in that hole. That is why we need to get something so far down in there. Now you do want to be careful when you pull these out because spark plugs are made of ceramic, and because of that they're fairly brittle but very strong. And if you end up cracking one or busting a piece off that falls down in the engine, that's not going to be great. So you don't want to do that. Just be extra careful. If you haven't done something like this before, I would definitely recommend doing it on an engine that has spark plugs on the outside. These spark plugs are just right down here, and if you break them, you could probably get it out of the cylinder, but chances are you're not going to break it such that it would fall into the cylinder. So work on something easier where the spark plugs are on the outside of the engine. You can see them, you can get at them easier. But if this is your only car, your first car, whatever, go ahead and try it. Just be careful. Alright guys, so we got all of the things out of the way here. Hooked up our socket, and we got a little quick release there, so that'll pop off. Now what I'm talking about when I say that this one fits down the hole and the others don't, is that this can actually get down into that hole that we had just seen. Now I have some other small sockets, they're not 14mm, but I have used these on some other spark plugs. They don't fit, right? So I could just sit them there, but this guy is just a lot thinner. So it's obviously the right size, but you might be able to tell a little bit. It's a little bit thinner walled so that you have more space down in there. Without further ado, we'll get our guy going down in there, and you just want to be extra careful. Actually, you know what we're going to do? I'm going to pull it off. We're going to feel it by hand first. Make sure we're set on there so you can get a good grip. And then we will make sure we're setting this to the right direction to loosen. Alright, and we got it a little bit loose here. We just had to break it. And when I say break it, we're not actually snapping it, but when you have a bolt that's set into something, the torque and all that will cause a lot of friction between the head of the screw or whatever you're unscrewing. And so when you pop it or you break it, you're just kind of breaking it loose is what we're talking about. So we got that a little loose. We'll get this guy off the top and see if we can do it a little by hand. Okay. And we'll just do this until it's ready. Now, we can see on the new spark plugs that there is a heck of a lot of threads, and that's great. We want it to stay in the engine, but that also means we're going to have to do a lot of turns on this guy. And we're getting there. And it's probably loose now, so we'll pull this guy out, and no spark plug because we don't have a special spark plug thing. So we will get our handy dandy magnet on a stick. Ta-da! Stick it down in there. Ooh, it's wanting to stick to the edges of that cylinder. And there we go. We fished it right out. Okay. Now, okay, this is a good point to check your old spark plugs. So I've got about 100,000 miles on this car now. It doesn't look too terrible, actually. I mean, it's used, obviously. It's definitely used, but You know, we don't see any black sludge on there, which would mean oil's getting in there, and some yellowing from use. But this guy right here is what you really want to check, because when you see this, that's going to tell you that you're ready for a change. Now these are the NGKs. Those are the standard OEM ones. I just picked up some auto lights because they were half the price. These NGKs at the store, I think I was checking out AutoZone or Advanced Auto Parts or whatever. These were $15 per spark plug, so it would have been almost $60 to replace 4 spark plugs. And these auto lights, which got about the same reviews, were $7 or $8 a pop. So $30, $32 to replace all 4 instead of 60. If it lasts, you know, just over half as long as these ones, it'll be worth the money. So with that said, we'll go ahead and throw this guy back in there. Well, actually, we'll get out the other 3 yet, but then we'll go ahead and throw these guys back in there and start her up. Alright, so we got all the old spark plugs out, and they all look about the same, but what we're going to actually do with these, I'm going to keep 1 or 2 of them because I know the car is running now, and yeah, they all have this little yellow line here, and that's, you know, kind of indication that it's ready to go, but I know that it is working now, so maybe we'll keep 1 or 2 just as a safety backup. You know, I don't know, just in case something goes wrong and I'm stranded and for whatever reason I need the spark plug. Now I know that sounds silly because we'll need all these other tools as well, but I usually will keep some sort of toolbox or roadside assistance kit in the car. Now, I know you're all curious because otherwise why would you be here? When the spark plug is down in the engine, we got our coil pack. Here we have number 3. But it basically, what we're doing is pushing down like this. That fits right in that rubber boot and then holds on like that. So, if you don't have a magnet thing, or a magnet on a stick, or the tube that I was talking about earlier, what you can do, put that back down in there, what you can do is actually use your coil pack, and we'll just push it down in there, and it'll grab it and pull it out. And this is essentially the same method that you'd be using if you have a rubber hose. You just have like this rubber boot going around the neck of the spark plug, and he grabs it and pulls it out for you. So then down in here, you can't see it, but there is a metal contact up in here, and that is where the tip of our spark plug meets with that metal contact up in there. And then we send the electrical charge down, and it creates a little spark, and we get ignition in the engine. So, there you go. Alright, so let's get out our new spark plugs here. And we're going to drop them in by hand, and just so we don't damage anything here. And then what we're going to do is reach down with our extension, our extended driver, and start them by hand because we don't want to cross thread them. If we just start cranking along with the ratchet handle, we might damage the threads down in there. And if you cross thread it like that, there's a good chance that you're going to have some blow by because you're not going to be seating properly. And these spark plugs go directly into your cylinders. So if you got it, if it's supposed to be straight and you got it kind of wonky, you might leave some gaps around the edges for that combustion to sneak by. All right, so now we got our little guy here. And we'll just start it by hand. Look, it's pretty tight. And you can feel it. If it's cross-threaded, you'll feel it in the first couple twists because it's not going to want to keep turning because it's trying to go across threads. So that should be fine. And remember, there's a lot of threads on these. They're long threads, so don't worry if you're twisting for quite a while. If you do happen to cross-thread it, just back it off again and start over. You're not going to damage anything unless you put huge amounts of torque on it, so this is why starting it by hand is pretty essential, and save your engine just in case you're doing something wrong. Doing some shit like that. It's pretty good. This guy. Now, I would recommend, if you're going to be doing a lot of car work, especially on this guy, you check out some manual for the truck. If you've seen the other videos, got a 1975 pickup. I do have a Haynes manual for that. Haynes makes amazing manuals. I'm sure you've heard of them. But I looked the other day, and they don't have a manual just yet for the 2017 and up Civics. They have one that goes up to 2016, but nothing past that. So, all right, these are getting pretty tight in there. We'll throw on our ratchet and switch it to the tightening position. Drop down in there, and we don't want to over tighten it. If you get one of those manuals, there will be a torque spec. I'm just gonna tighten it until it's probably about there. So you'll feel it. You don't need to super muscle it, but it does need to be snug. And they do have washers on them to seal up any gaps. So, and of course, when we're done, we'll run the engine and make sure that it's running properly and all that. And that'll help diagnose any issues you may have. So that one, I guess, needed to go a little further. But we're gonna just tighten it up a little. Okay. And this guy too. There's only so much torque you can get when you're twisting a little shaft. So go on, make all the jokes. I know what I said. Do. And last, do this guy. Now it's really nice having a i4 engine here, because on the truck I'd have to do 8 of them, and they're, as you saw before, tucked really far away. These guys are super awesome because they're right on top, and it takes, well, not super long to change them. Alright, that'll do it. Now we're going to take our coil packs, and labeled them so we know that we're gonna just put them right back where we got them from. Just drop those in there. Make sure that the little rubber boot seats on top of the spark plug head, and you can feel it. It gets, it slides down pretty easily, and then it gets a little bit of resistance, and you can keep going a little more. So kind of just like that. You can feel it when you get it in there. And if you're worried about feeling it, you know, before you put these back in, go ahead and just take a spark plug and put it in like I was showing you before. You can kind of get a feel for what it feels like, and then you won't have to worry so much when you push it back down in there. All right, so those are on. I'm gonna get our 10mm screwdriver guy and put these 10mm screws back in. Hold the coil packs down. Again, if you do get a user manual, you get a technical manual, a mechanics manual, it'll probably give you a torque spec for these. I don't have one. These things aren't gonna really be going anywhere anyway. It's not like we're relying on it for suspension, but yeah. So these are less important than the spark plug torque specs, because the spark plug goes directly into the combustion chamber, and that is sealing in pressure. These guys are just kind of sitting on top of them, and that's why there's only the one bolt and why there's not so many threads. Obviously we want these bolts to stay on, but they're not going to be seeing huge forces like we're going to get in the combustion chamber. All right, awesome. So those are on. We got spark plugs in, and now all that's left to do is reconnect your little clippies. And this is the easiest part because they just slide on and they lock on. Make sure you get that click. Boom, done. All right, let's start her up and see if we have any issues. I'm gonna clear my garbage here real quick and we'll get to it. All right, here we go. Let's start her up. All right, looking good. Sounds like it always does, so that's good. If you had miswired something, or if the spark plug was not firing right, you might hear a misfire and it just kind of sound different. Maybe like you're kind of sputtering and And also, if you're misfiring, you're not going to have a balanced out force over the engine, because you'll get punch, 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 and then no punch, and the engine might shake around a little bit. Now, I got the camera hooked up to the hood right now. The hood's open, so you can see in, and some of the engine vibration is transferring through the hood. And that's why we're getting some crazy vibrations in the video. But I'm going to cut it here, because we're done. Go ahead and close your hood, and you're ready to go. Alright, so there you have it. We just changed spark plugs on a 2017 Honda Civic. Should have mentioned this at the beginning, and maybe I'll take a little cut here and put it at the beginning. This is a 2017 Honda Civic EX 1.5 liter turbo engine. So if this was helpful, I'm not even going to ask you to like and subscribe. I don't really care. I just want you to leave a comment so that I know I'm being helpful. And yeah, if you watch some other videos, I say, oh, like and subscribe, you know, whatever. No, you can if you want, but I just want to make these videos to help some people out. You know, share some knowledge, save you like $500. So that's all for this video. Feel free to stick around the channel, pop around. We got a lot of videos on the truck, and you know, it's a lot of the same technology. It's like 40-year difference, but it's similar. You know, it's similar. So stick around, check out some other videos, and if not, have a great day.